You know, it's crazy hearing that Marvel theme and the pages turning, that logo going at the very beginning is very comforting. You forget how much you love that sound. Hearing that sound reminds you of comfort, makes you feel good. It's sort of like unwrapping old CDs or tapes from my old music heads, and the feeling you get of just like, oh, I can't wait for what's about to happen. And in this world that's so crazy right now, all everything going up turns upside down. It's good to know that everything is right back in the world because Marvel's back on it. And I'll give you my thoughts on WandaVision, first two episodes, right after the jump. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know about it. Well, we're finally here. Phase 4 is finally kicked off with WandaVision. Now, we all know that the road to get here is a little bumpy, not because of anything that Marvel did. The world slowed everything down. So, unfortunately, this was not the jump off point for Marvel. They originally wanted Phase 4 to start with Black Widow and go into Eternals and Shang-Chi, and WandaVision would fit in somewhere in the middle. But because of just the way the world is gone, everything's cycled out. WandaVision is the first one at bat for Disney Plus, and it is a very intriguing and interesting way to start off Phase Four because WandaVision right off the bat is unlike anything else that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has ever done before. I know that sounds very cliche. You're probably hearing that on all the reviews and things that you've been clicking on, but it's very true. It's very accurate. There are layers to this show. At the base level, when you first look at it, it looks like it is a comedy show, an old school 60s, 70s comedy black and white show. That's what these two episodes are about. And just so you know, guys, don't worry. I'm going to do my best to be non spoilers. But the show is very much an homage to some of the old school Nick at Night. Nick at Night for some folks. For some folks, actual airing the first time television shows like Dick Van Dyke Show or I Love Lucy or Bewitched, those type of programs, and the comedy style, the housing style, the way the house is set, the way everything is set up, are reminiscent to those shows. And off bat, Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch and Paul Bettany as Vision are some masterful actors because comedy is one of the hardest things to actually do. If you can make people laugh and you can pull it off well, kudos to you. And both of them do and do it excellently. Uh, and because episode one and episode two take place in what are even though it's still all black and white, take place in different eras. They also there's a slight comedic difference between one era of comedy and another, and you can kind of tell how their mannerisms change and how they're breaking fourth wall or playing with levels and the style of comedy in each of the two episodes, and they're really really good at it. There is someone's job who was single handedly like piping all the old black and white sitcoms and peeling and minding what they wanted and putting little nuggets here and there that this becomes at the surface level a just fantastic and a really well done comedy show. Something that you are not used to and something that you aren't probably prepared for. That can be a bit of a turnoff for a lot of fans because there's not really a lot of action in these first two episodes. But why it works for me is that while there is not a lot of action and on the surface level it is a comedy, there is an underlying layer underneath of just kind of this sadness or dread or almost like an Orson Wellesian, Alfred Hitchcockian type of like underlying layer, like, oh, there is something terrible amiss happening in this world for these two to be in the situation that they are in. Because last we left them, one of them wasn't here, and the other was very sad about it. So we're not exactly sure where this takes place in the timeline of everything else that's happened in the MCU, but we know that we last left these guys. Something doesn't quite add up for them to be where they are now, and we get hints in these episodes of future organizations that may be a part of it. They do a really good job of putting in a couple of commercials, somewhere like the Grindhouse films did, where they put commercials in the middle that feel like the rest of the era that the show is taking place in, but also have some underlying meanings. If you pay attention to symbols, if you pay attention to words and what's being used, you can see that they are hinting towards something else being amiss. The use of colors in certain episodes. It's really well done. The first episode harkens more to Dick Van Dyke, that era of comedy, and I think it was really smart to put these two episodes together because they are both black and white. They both, while the decades, there's a slight difference in comedy, there is a familiarity between the two because there's not that much of a difference. But I think you needed it both because the first episode, while I love that old school style of comedy, it's a big thing that the tropes used to play always back in the day with comedy where one person is saying something, the other person is saying something, and confusion happens and hijinks ensue. It's what we get here, and that's sort of the theme that happens with the first episode. But it doesn't really flesh out the world that we're in so much as the second episode does. And I think the two of them together put up together a perfect 45 minutes to an hour of content to sort of show you what it is that you're getting with this series. That said, there are going to be some folks who have taken major issue with the fact that this is so weird and so unlike anything that they've seen before. There's no action in this first hour. And I don't think that that's a thing that's not going to happen at all in this series. I feel like these shows, these Marvel television shows, are being shot as one big film, like a 3 hour film, and they're breaking it down into segments that fit a sort of story that they can feed to you in a moment. I think because of that, you're going to have some acts that are more setup piece based, and then some acts that are more plot based, and then some that are more like let's get into the action. I think we're going to get there, but I am loving this almost Black Mirror way of sort of everything on the surface seems fine and dandy and smiles and very Stepford Wife-ish, but there's a lot happening, and I won't go into spoilers. We'll do eventually. I'm going to have a podcast. This is a show that we're going to all be talking about because we're going to be having weekly stuff with WandaVision for quite some time here. But I had a very good time with the show. I will say this: it is a bit because I'm a fan of these type of shows. I'm a fan of Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie and all of those shows. It is very jarring to see people of color in black and white shows or black and white content. We didn't exist then. But I love that Marvel is like, hey, we're not even going to question that. We're just going to do it and whatnot. Like, but it shows you that there is also, in addition to being sadness and something else of miss, this is happening in current time because there is no way in hell whatever is happening reality wise that wouldn't be a thing. So it's a little jarring to all of a sudden see people who look like me in something of an old school black and white comedy. But that's a completely different side note. Oh, and before I forget, Catherine Hahn is spectacular in this series. She's everything Elizabeth and everything Paul. Paul more so in the second episode. Elizabeth throughout the entire series are great. Catherine Hahn is a delight from start to finish. Anytime she's on screen, she is nailing the era and what her character is supposed to be doing within that era. And I think we should give more kudos to Catherine because she's killing it. Now more onto the show. There is an issue that I have, and it has nothing to do with the show because I think the show. I like the pace of the show. I like the comedy. I love that we're getting stuff unveiled in this really creepy, like tidbits here and there type of stuff. I like that. The problem I have is the marketing sort of gave some things away that I would have rather have consumed while watching from week to week. Some of that is on us as viewers of the MCU and wanting to have all the information. We know casting that has occurred and what people and who people are playing. While the show hasn't revealed that to us, we know some people are playing characters that have a bigger impact. And so when we see them on screen, we're kind of like, oh, I already know who this person is, or I know where we're going. We're going to be leading up to something instead of just us allowing to digest and consume that on its face value. I also think that there's a lot of things that unfortunately were shown as far as what else is coming in the future that if you consume if you watch trailers and you do all that stuff, unfortunately can take some of the sting out of the reveal of what we're getting, because I think the slow burn that we're getting is great. I just would rather have had just that. I also don't know that if you give people just that, though, if you just show a black and white trailer and none of the other stuff that may be happening in the future this season, I don't know if you get as many people on board for this, uh, without showing them that there will be some action beats, there will be some other things happening. You kind of have to do that. I just feel like they might have done it too much. But yeah, I'm fully in. I loved every minute. There were moments when I was smiling. I've seen episode 1 twice. And I loved it. I watched it the second time with my wife. She was smiling from ear to ear. I think this is just a one in all the madness that's happening in the world. It's one to good to get something that is, on the surface anyway, very sweet, wholesome, and just fun, but also return to this world of Marvel, who seem to get and have their finger on the pulse of what people need when they need it. And it just so worked out that WandaVision is the perfect kind of segue back into getting back into all the things that the MCU has to offer us. I will be talking about this show weekly. Every time an episode drops, I will be having something. I'm going to do my best to be non-spoilery because I want everybody to catch up. But then once we're all done and the show is complete, we'll have some spoilers and some thoughts and kind of go into some things. I am doing a podcast. We're dusting it off. We're bringing the Hollywood Already Did It podcast for a couple special things that we're doing with my co-host Blake and a special guest. And we'll be talking about WandaVision and some of the sitcoms of the eras that they are trying to homage. It'll be a fun little thing. You can check that out anywhere the podcasts are played. We're on Google Play, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere the podcasts are. We're gonna be there. Bring it back, and we'll also have it here on YouTube. What did you guys think about WandaVision? Did you dig it? Is it too slow for you? I know this is such a weird show and so different that it might turn some people off. People are like, I don't want to see that. Where's the ones with like with Falcon and Winter Soldier? That might be more your speed, where you're like, just get me into the action. I don't want to watch this stuff. I get it. I hear you and I understand, but this is my kind of weird bag. I dig it. But I know some folks don't. Go ahead and leave your comments in the comments below. Let me know what you guys thought about it. What are you guys looking for the future? In the comments, we can go ahead and get a little spoiler. Just make sure you mark spoilers, but we can get a little spoilery there and what you think and might not think are happening. I just don't want to mess it up for anybody who has not seen it yet. If you want, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You're going to hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. I already spoke about the podcast that's going to be coming back. And we also have the sister podcast called You Can't Do That Anymore, where we talk about classic films like American Beauty and Tropic Thunder and Gone with the Wind, and see what those films did when they were released, if they can do those today through the eyes of 2021. And you can find that also wherever podcasts are played. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.